Rebuild yourself. Focus on yourself every day. Right now, in this very second, you're living someone else's life. You think you're making your own decisions, chasing your own goals, building your own future. But the truth is different. You've abandoned yourself so completely that you can't even recognize it anymore. Every morning you wake up and focus on everyone's needs, everyone's opinions, everyone's expectations. And the most important person in your life, you, is only getting whatever attention is left over. This isn't just about being busy or overwhelmed. This is something far more dangerous. You've developed a belief system that focusing on yourself is selfish, that prioritizing your own development is wrong, that caring about your own growth is less important than pleasing others. And this belief is consuming you from the inside out. Now, here's a truth that will change everything. The most successful, intelligent, and powerful people in the world all have one thing in common. They made a decision that most people will never make. They decided that they were their number one priority. Not in a narcissistic way, not by ignoring others, but by understanding this fundamental truth. You cannot give what you don't have. Today, you're going to learn how to reprogram yourself from scratch. You'll see how to transform focusing on yourself from just a daily habit into a complete life transformation. When you're done with this, you'll understand that this single shift in focus is the difference between living an ordinary life and creating something extraordinary. Chapter 1. The Self-Neglect Epidemic, Destroying Your Potential. Let me ask you something, and I want you to sit with this question. When did you last spend an entire day purely focused on your own evolution, your own ambitions, your own vision, without guilt creeping in? When did you last turn down someone's request because you had something more crucial to do for yourself? When did you last choose your priorities over what others expected from you? If you're struggling to answer, you're not alone. You're caught in what I call the self-neglect epidemic, and it's the single most devastating force wrecking modern lives. Millions are wandering around completely disconnected from themselves, living their lives in service to everyone except the person who matters most. Here's how it unfolds. From the second you're born, you're trained to chase external approval. As a kid, you figured out that love and validation show up when you make others smile. You got praise when you behaved, attention when you performed, affection when you met standards. Slowly, methodically, you learned that your value wasn't about who you are, but about how well you serve everyone else. This conditioning runs so deep, so automatic, that by adulthood, you don't even catch yourself doing it. You wake up and immediately start thinking about what everyone needs: your boss, your family, your friends, your social media audience. You organize your entire day around external pressures, external deadlines, external expectations. And somewhere in the chaos of serving everyone else, you vanish. But here's the part that'll shock you. This isn't just about time management or feeling overwhelmed. This is about identity erasure. When you constantly focus outward, you literally lose connection with who you are. Your dreams get blurry. Your goals become fuzzy. Your sense of self gets so watered down that you start defining yourself entirely through your relationships to others. You become someone's employee, someone's parent, someone's friend. But you stop being you. The psychological damage is brutal. When you abandon yourself, you develop what psychologists call learned helplessness. You get so used to reacting to external demands that you lose your ability to create from within. You stop trusting your gut. You stop believing in your vision. You start living on autopilot, going through the motions with zero real sense of purpose. And here's the cruelest twist. The more you focus on everyone else, the less you actually have to give. When you ignore your own growth, your own health, your own development, you become a depleted shell of yourself. You show up to relationships, to work, to life itself, running on fumes. You think you're being generous by putting everyone first, but actually you're robbing them of the best version of yourself. This is why so many people feel trapped, frustrated, and hollow despite working harder than ever. They're dumping all their energy into external wins while their internal foundation crumbles. They're building lives that look impressive from the outside, but feel empty on the inside. They're collecting everyone else's approval while losing their own soul. The self-neglect epidemic isn't just a personal issue. It's a cultural disease that keeps people small, keeps them controllable, keeps them hooked on external validation instead of building internal power. And the only cure is making a decision that'll feel radical, uncomfortable, and completely against everything you've been taught. You must decide that you are your most important project. Chapter 2. The brain science behind why you need self-focus to thrive. Your brain wasn't built to constantly focus outward. This might sound harsh, but it's biological fact supported by decades of neuroscience. Your nervous system, your cognitive functions, your emotional balance, all these critical systems need regular, self-focused attention to work properly. When you chronically ignore this need, you're not just being selfless, you're literally damaging your brain. Let me break down what happens neurologically when you abandon self-focus. Your brain has what scientists call the default mode network, a collection of regions that light up when you're not focused on external tasks. This network handles self-reflection, processing experiences, consolidating memories, and planning ahead. It's basically your brain's maintenance system for your sense of self. When you constantly focus outward, constantly react to external demands, constantly prioritize others, you suppress this default mode network. You rob your brain of the downtime it needs to process, integrate, and grow. The result is what researchers call continuous partial attention, a state where you're always slightly scattered, always slightly overwhelmed, always slightly disconnected from yourself. But here's where it gets dangerous. When your default mode network is chronically shut down, your brain loses its ability to distinguish between your own thoughts and external noise. You become hyper-susceptible to other people's emotions, stress, and opinions. You start absorbing the energy around you instead of generating your own. You become what psychologists call an emotional sponge, constantly soaking up everyone else's feelings and problems while losing touch with your own inner world. The research is crystal clear. People who regularly practice self-focused activities like meditation, journaling, or solo time show increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for executive function, decision-making, and self-control. They also show decreased activity in the amygdala, the brain's alarm system, meaning they're less reactive, less anxious, and more emotionally steady. On the flip side, people who chronically neglect self-focus show the opposite pattern. Their prefrontal cortex becomes sluggish, making decisions and self-control harder. Their amygdala becomes hyperactive, keeping them in constant stress mode. They literally rewire their brains for external dependency and internal chaos. This is why so many feel like they're losing themselves. They actually are. Every day you prioritize external focus over internal development, you're training your brain to be less self-aware, less self-directed, and less capable of independent thinking. You're becoming neurologically addicted to external validation and direction. But here's the incredible part. The moment you start prioritizing self-focus, your brain begins transforming. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, means you can literally rebuild your neural pathways to support self-awareness, self-direction, and internal strength. You can train your brain to be your ally instead of your saboteur. Studies show that just 25 minutes of daily self-focused activity can start reversing years of self-neglect. Your default mode network reactivates. Your prefrontal cortex strengthens. Your amygdala settles down. You start thinking clearer, feeling steadier, and making decisions from internal wisdom rather than external pressure. This isn't just about feeling better. This is cognitive enhancement. When you focus on yourself regularly, you literally become sharper, more creative, and more capable. Your brain operates at peak performance because it's no longer constantly drowning in external demands. You start seeing solutions instead of roadblocks, opportunities instead of obstacles, possibilities instead of limitations. The science is undeniable. Self-focus isn't selfish. It's essential. Your brain needs it to function properly. Your nervous system requires it to stay balanced. Your cognitive abilities depend on it to operate at their peak. When you make focusing on yourself a daily non-negotiable, you're not just improving your life. You're optimizing your biology for success. Chapter 3. How External Validation Addiction Programs You for Mediocrity. You've been programmed like software, and you don't even realize it. Every time you check your phone for reactions, every time you seek approval before making a move, every time you adjust your behavior to dodge criticism, you're strengthening a neural pathway that makes you weaker, more dependent, and less capable of independent success. You've become addicted to external validation, and this addiction is systematically destroying your ability to build a life on your terms. Let me show you exactly how this programming works. Every time you get external validation, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurochemical involved in substance addiction. This creates a reward loop that makes you crave more validation, more approval, more external confirmation of your worth. But here's the devastating part. The more you rely on external validation, the less capable you become of generating internal validation. Think about it like a muscle. Your self-validation muscle works exactly like any physical muscle. If you don't use it, it withers. If you constantly rely on others to tell you you're good enough, smart enough, worthy enough, your internal validation system shuts down. You literally lose the ability to feel confident and secure without external input. This is why so many become validation junkies without realizing it. They start needing constant reassurance, constant approval, constant feedback to feel okay about themselves. They can't make a decision without consulting others. They can't feel good about their wins unless someone else acknowledges them. They can't even know what they want without checking what everyone else thinks they should want. But the real tragedy is what this does to your potential. When you're hooked on external validation, you become a people pleaser by default. You start making decisions based on what'll get you approval rather than what'll get you results. You choose the safe route, the conventional route, the route that won't ruffle feathers, even if it means sacrificing your dreams, your goals, your authentic self. This is how external validation addiction programs you for average. You become so focused on not disappointing others that you guarantee disappointing yourself. You become so concerned with fitting in that you never stand out. You become so invested in being liked that you never become truly respected. And here's the most insidious part. The people whose validation you're seeking don't actually want you to succeed beyond their level. This isn't conscious malice, it's human psychology. People are naturally threatened by those who outgrow them, who achieve more, who become more. So when you constantly seek their approval, you're unconsciously asking permission to stay small. Your family wants you successful, but not so successful you become unrelatable. Your friends want you to grow, but not so much you outgrow the friendship. Your colleagues want you to do well, but not so well you make them look bad. When you make their approval your priority, you're essentially letting them set the ceiling on your life. This is why the most successful people are often misunderstood, criticized, or even rejected by those around them. They've learned to generate their own validation, trust their own judgment, pursue their own vision regardless of what others think. They've broken free from the external validation trap that keeps most people stuck in average lives. But breaking free isn't just about ignoring others. It's about rebuilding your internal validation system from scratch. It's about learning to recognize your own progress, celebrate your own wins, and trust your own instincts. It's about developing what psychologists call an internal locus of control, the belief that you have power over your own outcomes. When you have strong internal validation, you become unstoppable. You stop making decisions based on fear of judgment. You stop avoiding risks because they might lead to criticism. You stop playing small because it feels safer. You start pursuing what you actually want instead of what you think others want for you. This doesn't mean you become arrogant or dismissive of feedback. It means you become selective about whose opinions matter. It means you learn to distinguish between constructive criticism from people who want you to win and destructive criticism from people who want you to stay small. It means you develop the confidence to bet on yourself, even when others doubt you. The transformation begins the moment you start paying more attention to your own opinion of yourself than everyone else's opinion of you. When you start measuring your worth by your own standards instead of external standards. When you start defining success on your own terms instead of society's terms. This is when you stop being a slave to validation and start becoming the master of your own life. Chapter 4. The Daily Self-Assessment System that Reconstructs Your Identity. Most people go through their entire lives without truly knowing themselves. They react based on old patterns, make decisions based on inherited beliefs, and chase goals based on external expectations, all while having zero clear understanding of who they actually are beneath the conditioning. But there's a way to strip away all the external programming and reconnect with your authentic self. And it starts with a daily practice that'll revolutionize how you see yourself and your potential. I call this the Daily Self-Assessment System, and it's the most powerful tool I've ever discovered for rebuilding your identity from within. This isn't just about self-reflection or journaling. This is about conducting a systematic examination of your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and outcomes every single day so you can identify what's working, what's not, and what needs to shift. The first component is the morning identity declaration. Before you do anything else, before checking your phone, before interacting with anyone, before reacting to the world, you ask yourself three fundamental questions. Who am I today? What do I stand for today? What am I building today? These questions might seem simple, but they're incredibly powerful because they force you to consciously choose your identity. Instead of defaulting to old patterns, most people wake up and immediately slip into autopilot, becoming whoever they were yesterday, reacting the same way, making the same choices, following the same patterns. But when you start each day by consciously defining who you are, you take control of your identity instead of letting your identity control you. The second component is the hourly awareness checkpoint. Every hour, you pause whatever you're doing and ask yourself, am I acting in alignment with who I said I am this morning? Am I making choices that build the person I want to become? Or am I reverting to old patterns? This isn't about judging yourself or feeling guilty about misalignment. It's about creating conscious awareness of the gap between who you want to be and who you're actually being in real time. This hourly check-in serves two critical purposes. First, it prevents you from sleepwalking through your day. Most people spend entire days on autopilot, making unconscious decisions that pull them away from their goals without realizing it. The hourly pause breaks this unconscious pattern and brings you back to intentional living. Second, it creates multiple opportunities for course correction throughout the day. Instead of waiting until bedtime to realize you've been off track all day, you catch misalignment early and adjust. This compounds over time, creating a life increasingly aligned with your authentic self rather than your conditioned patterns. The third component is the evening integration review. At day's end, you conduct a thorough examination of your thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and results. You ask, what did I learn about myself today? What patterns did I notice? What triggered me and why? What made me feel most alive and authentic? What felt forced or inauthentic? But here's what makes this different from regular journaling. You're not just recording what happened. You're analyzing the data to identify patterns and make strategic adjustments. You're treating yourself like a scientist studying the most important subject in the world. You. This evening review helps you understand your emotional patterns, your behavioral triggers, your energy cycles, and your authentic preferences. Over time, you start seeing clear patterns that reveal who you really are beneath the conditioning. You discover what truly motivates you versus what you think should motivate you. You identify your real values versus the values you inherited from others. The fourth component is weekly identity evolution planning. Every week, you review the data from your daily assessments and ask, what patterns am I ready to change? What aspects of my identity need upgrading? What new behaviors do I want to experiment with? This is where you consciously evolve your identity based on what you've learned about yourself. Most people change by accident, slowly drifting toward whoever they spend time with or whatever environment they're in. But when you have a systematic process for examining and evolving your identity, you change by design. You become who you choose to become, rather than who circumstances make you become. The fifth and most crucial component is the monthly authenticity audit. Once a month, you conduct a deep examination of your entire life to assess alignment with your authentic self. You ask, am I living according to my values or someone else's? Are my goals actually my goals or goals I think I should have? Am I in relationships that support my authentic self or relationships that require me to be someone I'm not? This monthly audit often reveals uncomfortable truths. You might realize you've been pursuing a career that doesn't match your authentic interests. You might discover you're in relationships that require you to suppress parts of yourself. You might find you've been living according to expectations that were never really your own. But these uncomfortable realizations are the beginning of real transformation. You can't fix what you don't acknowledge. You can't change what you're not aware of. The daily self-assessment system creates the awareness necessary for authentic change. When you commit to this system, something profound happens. You stop being a stranger to yourself. You develop an intimate understanding of your patterns, your triggers, your authentic desires, and your genuine potential. You become your own best friend, your own most trusted advisor, your own most reliable guide. This intimate self-knowledge becomes the foundation for everything else. You make better decisions because you understand what truly matters to you. You set better goals because you know what authentically motivates you. You build better relationships because you know who you really are and what you actually need. The daily self-assessment system isn't just about self-improvement. It's about self-reclamation. It's about taking back ownership of your identity from all the external forces that have been shaping it without your conscious consent. It's about becoming the author of your own story, instead of a character in everyone else's story. Chapter 5. Escaping the people-pleasing trap that's killing your dreams. You're living in a cage, and you built it yourself. Every time you say yes when you mean no. Every time you bite your tongue to avoid conflict. Every time you sacrifice your goals to keep someone comfortable. You're adding another bar to the prison that keeps you trapped in a life that isn't really yours. This cage is called people-pleasing, and it's the most effective way to guarantee you'll never reach your full potential. People-pleasing feels like kindness, but it's actually a form of self-betrayal. Every time you abandon your authentic self to gain approval, you're teaching your subconscious that other people's comfort matters more than your truth. You're programming yourself to believe that your wants, your needs, your dreams are less valuable than everyone else's. You're systematically erasing yourself to keep others happy. But here's what you need to grasp about people-pleasing. It doesn't actually make people happy. It makes them comfortable. And there's a massive difference. When you constantly accommodate others, when you never challenge them, when you never express your authentic opinions or desires, you rob them of the chance to know the real you. You create relationships based on a false version of yourself, which means the love and approval you get isn't actually for you. It's for the mask you wear. This creates a devastating psychological trap. The more you people please, the more isolated you feel, because no one actually knows who you really are. The approval feels hollow because it's not based on your authentic self. So you please even more, hoping that more accommodation will finally give you the genuine connection you crave. But it never does, because genuine connection requires authentic expression, and people-pleasing is the opposite of authentic expression. The roots of people-pleasing usually trace back to childhood. Maybe you learned that love was conditional on being good, being quiet, being agreeable. Maybe you discovered that expressing your needs led to anger, disappointment, or withdrawal of affection. Maybe you grew up in an environment where keeping peace was more important than speaking truth. Whatever the origin, you developed a survival strategy that prioritizes other people's emotional comfort over your authentic expression. But what worked as a survival strategy in childhood becomes a success prevention strategy in adulthood. The same behaviors that kept you safe as a child now keep you small as an adult. The same patterns that earned approval when you were young now prevent you from achieving greatness. Here's the brutal truth about people-pleasing and success. You cannot please your way to the top. Every significant achievement, every breakthrough, every moment of real growth requires disappointing someone. It requires saying no to good opportunities so you can say yes to great ones. It requires prioritizing your vision over other people's expectations. It requires being willing to be misunderstood, criticized, or even rejected by people who want you to stay small. Think about anyone who's achieved something significant. They all share one thing. They were willing to disappoint people who wanted them to play it safe. They chose their own approval over everyone else's. They bet on their vision even when others couldn't see it. They prioritized their growth over other people's comfort. But breaking free from people-pleasing isn't about being selfish or inconsiderate. It's about recognizing that you have a responsibility to honor your authentic self. You have gifts, talents, perspectives, and contributions the world needs. But only if you're willing to express them authentically. When you suppress your authentic self to please others, you're not just hurting yourself, you're depriving the world of what you have to offer. The first step in breaking free is recognizing that you cannot control other people's emotions, and it's not your job to try. Other people's happiness, comfort, and emotional state are their responsibility, not yours. You can be kind, considerate, and respectful without being responsible for everyone's feelings. You can care about others without sacrificing yourself for them. The second step is learning to distinguish between healthy consideration and toxic accommodation. Healthy consideration means being aware of how your actions affect others and choosing to be respectful when possible. Toxic accommodation means sacrificing your authentic self, your goals, or your well-being to avoid any possibility of disappointing someone. The third step is developing what I call strategic self-priority. This isn't about being cruel. It's about recognizing that you must prioritize your own growth, health, and authentic expression if you want to show up as your best for others. It's about understanding that you cannot give what you do not have, and you cannot have what you do not prioritize. Strategic self-priority means saying no to requests that don't align with your priorities, even if saying no makes someone uncomfortable. It means expressing your authentic opinions, even if they differ from what others want to hear. It means pursuing your goals with intensity, even if your dedication makes others feel insecure about their own lack of commitment. The fourth step is building your tolerance for disapproval. Most people-pleasers have extremely low tolerance for any form of disapproval, criticism, or conflict. They'll go to extraordinary lengths to avoid upsetting anyone, which means they live their entire lives within the narrow boundaries of what everyone else finds acceptable. But here's what you need to understand. Disapproval isn't dangerous. Criticism isn't catastrophic. Conflict isn't the end of the world. These are just uncomfortable emotions, and emotions are temporary. The discomfort of disappointing someone passes, but the regret of not living authentically lasts forever. Building your tolerance for disapproval is like building any muscle. You start small and gradually increase intensity. You practice expressing minor preferences that might not align with others. You practice saying no to small requests. You practice sharing opinions that might be unpopular. Each time you survive the discomfort, you build confidence in your ability to handle it. The fifth step is surrounding yourself with people who support your authentic expression rather than rewarding your people-pleasing. This might mean distancing yourself from relationships that only work when you're suppressing yourself. It might mean finding new communities that appreciate your genuine perspectives. It might mean being alone for a while as you transition from false connections to authentic ones. Breaking free from people-pleasing isn't easy, but it's essential. Every day you continue sacrificing your authentic self for other people's comfort is a day you move further from your potential. Every time you choose approval over authenticity, you teach yourself you're not worthy of love as you really are. But when you finally break free, when you start living from your authentic self rather than your accommodating self, everything changes. You attract people who appreciate the real you. You pursue goals that actually matter to you. You make decisions aligned with your values rather than everyone else's expectations. You stop living someone else's life and start living your own. Chapter 6. Building bulletproof internal validation that makes you unshakable. You've been living your entire life as an emotional hostage to other people's opinions, and it's time to break free. Every criticism that crushes you, every piece of praise that lifts you, every sideways glance that makes you question yourself is proof that you've outsourced your self-worth to people who have no business determining your value. But what if I told you that you could become completely immune to criticism, while simultaneously becoming more open to genuine feedback? What if you could build an internal validation system so strong that other people's opinions become interesting data points rather than emotional earthquakes? This isn't about becoming arrogant or dismissive. This is about developing what psychologists call internal locus of evaluation. The ability to judge your own worth based on your own standards rather than external approval. When you have strong internal validation, you become emotionally bulletproof. Criticism can't destroy you because your sense of worth doesn't depend on other people's approval. Praise can't intoxicate you because you're not addicted to external validation. You become stable, centered, and unshakable, regardless of what anyone thinks. But building internal validation isn't just about mindset. It requires a systematic approach to rewiring your emotional responses and rebuilding your relationship with yourself. The first component is developing what I call the internal scorecard system. This means creating your own metrics for success, progress, and worth that are completely independent of external recognition. Most people measure their worth using other people's scorecards. They feel successful when others acknowledge their achievements. They feel valuable when others express appreciation. They feel confident when others compliment them. But this external scorecard makes them emotionally dependent on things they can't control. Other people's opinions are unreliable, inconsistent, and often have nothing to do with reality. Your internal scorecard is based on metrics you control completely. Did I act aligned with my values today? Did I make progress toward my goals? Did I treat myself with respect? Did I learn something new about myself? Did I face a fear or overcome a challenge? These questions determine your worth, not whether someone else noticed or approved. The second component is developing emotional independence through self-compassion. Most people are incredibly harsh with themselves, using internal criticism as motivation and beating themselves up for every mistake. But this internal harshness makes you desperate for external validation as relief from your own self-attack. You seek praise from others because you can't give it to yourself. You need approval from others because you constantly disapprove of yourself. Building internal validation requires learning to be your own best friend, your own biggest supporter, your own most compassionate ally. This doesn't mean becoming delusional about your flaws or avoiding self-improvement. It means treating yourself with the same kindness you'd give to someone you love who was struggling with the same challenges. Self-compassion has three components: self-kindness instead of self-judgment, common humanity instead of isolation, and mindfulness instead of over-identification. Self-kindness means speaking to yourself the way you'd speak to a dear friend going through difficulty. Common humanity means recognizing that struggle, failure, and imperfection are part of being human, not evidence that you're uniquely flawed. Mindfulness means observing your thoughts and emotions without being consumed by them. When you develop genuine self-compassion, you become less dependent on external validation because you're no longer desperately seeking relief from internal criticism. You can acknowledge mistakes without your self-worth collapsing. You can recognize flaws without feeling worthless. You can face challenges without needing others to reassure you. The third component is building evidence-based self-confidence. Most people base their confidence on how they feel in the moment or what others think. But feelings are unreliable, and other people's opinions are often inaccurate. Evidence-based self-confidence is built on documented proof of your capabilities, growth, and achievements. This means keeping a detailed record of your progress, wins, growth, and capabilities. Not for others to see, but for you to remember when doubt creeps in. When someone criticizes you, or when you start questioning yourself, you have concrete evidence of your abilities that no one can take away. Your evidence file should include challenges you've overcome, skills you've developed, goals you've achieved, positive feedback from credible sources, times you've acted courageously, moments when you've helped others, instances of personal growth, and examples of your unique strengths. This isn't about ego or arrogance. It's about having an accurate, balanced view of your capabilities based on real evidence rather than distorted perceptions. The fourth component is developing selective receptivity to feedback. This doesn't mean ignoring all criticism or dismissing all feedback. It means becoming highly selective about whose opinions you allow to influence your self-perception. Not all feedback is created equal. Not all critics are worth listening to. Not all praise is meaningful. Selective receptivity means evaluating feedback based on 3 criteria: the credibility of the source, the accuracy of the information, and the helpfulness of the insight. Credible sources are people who've achieved what you want to achieve, who understand your field, who care about your growth, and who've demonstrated good judgment. Accurate information is specific, actionable, and based on observable behavior rather than character attacks. Helpful insights move you closer to your goals rather than just making you feel bad or good. When feedback meets all 3 criteria, you listen carefully and integrate what serves you. When feedback fails these tests, you acknowledge it politely, but don't let it affect your self-perception. This isn't about being defensive or closed-minded. It's about being strategic and protective of your mental and emotional energy. The fifth component is practicing controlled exposure to disapproval. Just like building physical immunity through controlled exposure to germs, you can build emotional immunity through controlled exposure to criticism and disapproval. This doesn't mean seeking harsh criticism or putting yourself in unnecessarily difficult situations. It means gradually expanding your comfort zone around disapproval so it loses power over you. Start by expressing minor preferences that might not align with others. Share opinions that might be slightly unpopular. Make choices that prioritize your needs, even if others might be disappointed. Each time you survive the discomfort without your world ending, you build evidence that disapproval isn't dangerous. The goal isn't to become callous or insensitive. The goal is to become free from the emotional tyranny of other people's opinions, so you can make decisions based on wisdom rather than fear. When you're no longer afraid of disapproval, you become capable of taking the risks necessary for extraordinary achievement. Building unshakable internal validation is one of the most powerful things you can do because it affects every area of your life. When you're not dependent on external approval, you make better decisions. You take bigger risks. You speak your truth. You pursue your authentic goals. You become the person you were meant to be, rather than the person others want you to be. This transformation doesn't happen overnight, but it happens consistently when you commit to the process. Every day you practice internal validation, you become a little more free. Every day you choose self-compassion over self-criticism, you become a little more stable. Every day you build evidence of your capabilities, you become a little more unshakable. Chapter 7. The Energy Shield Protocol that protects you from emotional drains. Your energy is being stolen every single day, and you don't even realize it's happening. Every conversation with someone who drains you, every interaction with someone who dumps their problems on you, every relationship where you give more than you receive, is siphoning away the life force you need to become who you want to be. You're surrounded by energy vampires, people who unconsciously or consciously feed off your emotional, mental, and spiritual energy, leaving you depleted, exhausted, and unable to focus on your own growth. But here's what most don't understand about energy vampires. They're not evil people with malicious intent. They're often people you care about, people you love, people who seem to need your help. They might be family members who constantly complain but never take action. They might be friends who only call when they need something but are never available when you need support. They might be colleagues who dump their stress on you daily. The problem isn't that these people are inherently bad. The problem is you haven't learned to protect your energy. You haven't established boundaries that preserve your emotional and mental resources for your own growth. You've been taught that being good means being available to everyone, helping everyone, supporting everyone, regardless of the cost to yourself. But this is a lie that keeps you weak, depleted, and unable to reach your potential. You cannot pour from an empty cup. You cannot help others if you haven't helped yourself first. You cannot be strong for everyone if you allow your own strength to be constantly drained. The Energy Shield Protocol isn't about being selfish. It's about being strategic with your most valuable resource, your life force. The first element is energy awareness. Most people go through life completely unconscious of their energy levels and what affects them. They don't notice that certain people consistently leave them drained. They don't recognize that certain environments sap their vitality. They don't realize that certain activities energize them while others deplete them. Energy awareness means paying conscious attention to how you feel before, during, and after interactions with different people. It means noticing which environments make you feel alive and which make you feel heavy. It means tracking which activities give you energy and which take it away. This isn't about judging people or situations as good or bad. It's about gathering data so you can make informed decisions about how to spend your energy. Start by conducting an energy audit of your relationships. After every significant interaction, ask yourself, do I feel more energized or more drained? Did this person give to the conversation or just take? Did I leave feeling inspired or depleted? Keep track of these patterns, and you'll start seeing clear distinctions between people who add to your energy and people who subtract from it. The second element is boundary architecture. This means creating clear, non-negotiable boundaries that protect your energy from being constantly drained. Boundaries aren't walls that keep people out. They're filters that determine what you allow into your emotional and mental space. Energy boundaries include time boundaries, limiting how much time you spend with energy drains. Topic boundaries, preventing certain conversations from dominating interactions. Emotional boundaries, preventing you from taking on other people's feelings as your own. Physical boundaries, protecting your personal space. And digital boundaries, controlling when and how people can access you through technology. Setting boundaries isn't about being mean. It's about being responsible for your own well-being so you can show up as your best. When you protect your energy, you actually have more to give to the people and causes that truly matter. The third element is the emotional firewall technique. This is a mental and emotional strategy that prevents other people's emotions from contaminating your internal state. Energy vampires are often in constant emotional chaos, and they unconsciously try to regulate their emotions by spreading them to others. They share their anxiety until you feel anxious. They express their anger until you feel agitated. They communicate their despair until you feel hopeless. The emotional firewall involves consciously separating your emotions from other people's emotions. Before entering any interaction, especially with known energy drains, you consciously remind yourself, Their emotions are their emotions, not mine. Their problems are their problems, not mine. Their chaos is their chaos, not mine. I can be compassionate without absorbing their emotional state. During the interaction, you practice what psychologists call emotional differentiation. You acknowledge their feelings without making them your feelings. You offer support without taking responsibility for their emotional state. You maintain your center while allowing them to express theirs. This isn't about being cold or disconnected. It's about maintaining healthy emotional boundaries so you can actually be helpful rather than just becoming another person drowning in their chaos. The fourth element is strategic unavailability. This means being intentionally unavailable for energy-draining interactions so you can be available for energy-giving activities. Most people are available to everyone all the time, which means they're constantly interrupted, constantly responding to other people's needs, constantly giving their energy away to whoever demands it loudest. Strategic unavailability means creating protected time for your own growth, goals, and restoration. This might mean turning off your phone during certain hours. It might mean not responding to messages immediately. It might mean saying no to social invitations that don't serve your energy. It might mean being less accessible to people who consistently drain you. This isn't about being rude or irresponsible. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are finite resources that must be managed strategically. When you're strategically unavailable for energy drains, you become available for energy gains. You have time to pursue activities that restore you. You have energy to invest in relationships that support your growth. You have mental space to focus on your development. The fifth element is energy replenishment protocols. Protecting your energy from being drained is only half the equation. The other half is actively replenishing your energy through activities, relationships, and environments that restore you. Most people are experts at giving energy away, but novices at getting it back. Energy replenishment is highly individual, but there are universal principles. Physical activities that challenge your body often replenish mental and emotional energy. Creative activities that engage your imagination can restore energy depleted by routine. Social activities with inspiring people can replenish energy drained by difficult relationships. Solitude and reflection can restore energy scattered by constant external demands. The key is being as intentional about energy replenishment as you are about energy protection. Schedule activities that restore you. Prioritize relationships that energize you. Create environments that inspire you. Make energy replenishment a non-negotiable part of your routine. The sixth element is the energy investment strategy. This means being highly selective about where you invest your emotional, mental, and physical energy. Just like financial investments, energy investments should be made based on expected returns. Some people, projects, and activities will give you positive energy returns. Others will be energy neutral. Still others will consistently drain more than they provide. The energy investment strategy involves regularly evaluating your energy investments and making strategic adjustments. If a relationship consistently drains more than it provides, you need to either change the dynamic or limit your investment. If a project doesn't align with your goals, you need to eliminate or minimize it. If an environment consistently depletes you, you need to change it or limit your exposure. This doesn't mean you only invest energy in things that immediately benefit you.
It means you're strategic about how you spend your energy so you have enough left to pursue your most important goals and maintain your well-being. When you protect and strategically invest your energy, you become capable of sustained high performance instead of constant depletion. Remember, your energy is your life force. It's what you use to create, grow, achieve, and contribute. When you allow it to be constantly drained, you rob yourself of the capacity to become who you're meant to be. But when you protect, replenish, and strategically invest your energy, you become unstoppable.
Chapter 8. The Complete Physical and Mental Upgrade Blueprint. Your body and mind aren't separate entities. They're one integrated system, and when one is neglected, the other suffers. Right now, you might be trying to rebuild your mental and emotional life while ignoring the physical foundation that supports everything else. Or you might be focusing on physical health while neglecting the mental frameworks that determine how you think, feel, and behave. But true reconstruction requires a systematic approach to upgrading both your physical and mental systems simultaneously. This isn't about becoming a fitness fanatic or meditation guru. This is about recognizing that your body is the vehicle for your consciousness, and your mind is the operating system for your life. When either operates below optimal levels, everything suffers. When both operate at peak performance, you become capable of achievements that seem impossible from your current state. The physical reconstruction blueprint begins with understanding that your body is constantly rebuilding itself. Every cell is replaced multiple times throughout your life. This means the body you have today is literally not the same body you had a year ago. You have power to influence this rebuilding process through choices you make every day about what you put in your body, how you move, and how you treat it. The first pillar of physical reconstruction is nutritional intelligence. This isn't about following the latest diet trend or restricting yourself to misery. This is about understanding that food is information for your body. Every meal sends signals to your cells about how to function. When you consistently eat processed foods, sugar, and chemicals, you're programming your body for inflammation, fatigue, and disease. When you consistently eat whole foods, quality proteins, and nutrients, you're programming your body for energy, clarity, and vitality. Nutritional intelligence means eating for performance rather than just pleasure. It means choosing foods that support your goals rather than just satisfying cravings. It means understanding that what you eat affects not just physical health, but mental clarity, emotional stability, and cognitive performance. The foundation of nutritional intelligence is eliminating foods that create inflammation and brain fog, processed foods, refined sugars, artificial chemicals, and excessive caffeine. The next step is emphasizing foods that support optimal function. Lean proteins that provide building blocks for neurotransmitters. Healthy fats that support brain function. Complex carbohydrates that provide steady energy. And micronutrients that support cellular function. But nutritional intelligence goes beyond just what you eat. It includes when you eat, how much you eat, and how you eat. Intermittent fasting can improve cellular repair and mental clarity. Proper portion control prevents energy crashes from overeating. Mindful eating improves digestion and nutrient absorption while reducing stress. The second pillar is movement mastery. Your body was designed to move. But modern life has created sedentary existence that weakens your physical foundation and impairs mental function. Movement mastery isn't about becoming an elite athlete. It's about using movement as a tool for physical and mental optimization. Movement mastery has 4 components: cardiovascular conditioning that improves blood flow to the brain and increases energy production, strength training that builds physical resilience and mental toughness, flexibility work that reduces tension and improves recovery, and daily movement that counteracts sedentary behavior. Cardiovascular exercise isn't just about physical fitness, it's about brain health. When you engage in regular cardio, you increase production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that supports growth of new brain cells and protects existing ones. You improve blood flow to the brain, enhancing cognitive function. You increase production of endorphins and mood-regulating chemicals. Strength training isn't just about building muscle, it's about building mental resilience. When you regularly challenge your body with resistance training, you develop mental toughness to push through discomfort and achieve difficult goals. You learn to embrace challenge rather than avoid it. You build confidence in your ability to overcome obstacles. Flexibility and recovery work isn't just about preventing injury. It's about managing stress and improving sleep quality. Stretching, yoga, and other recovery activities activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes rest, recovery, and mental clarity. The third pillar is sleep optimization. Sleep isn't luxury or laziness. It's biological necessity for physical and mental reconstruction. During sleep, your body repairs damaged tissues, consolidates memories, and produces hormones necessary for growth and recovery. When you consistently get poor quality or insufficient sleep, you impair every aspect of physical and mental function. Sleep optimization involves creating consistent sleep and wake times that align with natural circadian rhythms, creating an environment that supports deep, restorative sleep, eliminating habits and substances that interfere with sleep quality, and developing bedtime routines that prepare your body and mind for rest. This means avoiding screens for at least an hour before bed, because blue light suppresses melatonin production. It means keeping your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet to support deep sleep. It means avoiding caffeine, alcohol, and large meals close to bedtime. It means developing relaxing bedtime rituals that signal to your body it's time to rest. The mental reconstruction blueprint focuses on upgrading the software that runs your life, your thoughts, beliefs, habits, and mental frameworks. Just like physical reconstruction, mental reconstruction requires systematic attention to the inputs and processes that shape your mental state. The first pillar of mental reconstruction is cognitive hygiene. This means being as careful about what you put in your mind as what you put in your body. Your brain constantly processes information, and the quality of that information affects the quality of your thinking. When you constantly consume negative news, toxic social media, and low-quality entertainment, you're programming your mind for negativity, distraction, and mental weakness. Cognitive hygiene involves being highly selective about information you consume, prioritizing inputs that educate, inspire, and challenge you to grow. Limiting exposure to information that promotes fear, negativity, or distraction. And regularly engaging in activities that strengthen your mental faculties. This means curating your social media feeds to include only content that supports your growth. It means reading books that challenge your thinking and expand your knowledge. It means listening to podcasts and watching videos that educate and inspire rather than just entertain. It means having conversations with people who stimulate your mind rather than drain your energy. The second pillar is mental training through deliberate practice. Just like physical muscles, mental muscles need regular exercise to stay strong. Mental training involves practicing specific cognitive skills like focus, memory, problem solving, and emotional regulation. Meditation is one of the most powerful forms of mental training because it develops your ability to focus attention, observe thoughts without being controlled by them, and remain calm under pressure. But mental training also includes reading challenging material that expands your thinking, learning new skills that create neural pathways, and engaging in activities that require sustained mental effort. The third pillar is belief system reconstruction. Your beliefs are the operating system of your mind. They determine what you think is possible, what you think you deserve, and what actions you think are worth taking. When you have limiting beliefs, you limit your potential. When you have empowering beliefs, you expand your potential. Belief system reconstruction involves identifying beliefs that limit your potential, examining evidence for and against these beliefs, and consciously choosing beliefs that support your growth and goals. This isn't about positive thinking or denying reality. It's about choosing beliefs that are both accurate and empowering. The integration of physical and mental reconstruction creates compound effects that transform every aspect of your life. When your body is strong and healthy, your mind functions better. When your mind is clear and focused, you make better decisions about physical health. When both systems are optimized, you become capable of sustained high performance in every area. Chapter 9. Mastering the internal saboteur that undermines your progress. There's a force inside you more dangerous than any external enemy, more destructive than any criticism, and more limiting than any circumstance. This force has been sabotaging your progress since the day you decided to change, and it'll continue sabotaging until you learn to recognize it, understand it, and master it. This force is called internal resistance, and it's the reason why most people start strong but fade fast, why they have great intentions but poor follow-through, why they know what to do but don't do what they know. Internal resistance isn't weakness or lack of willpower. It's a sophisticated psychological defense mechanism your mind uses to keep you safe from perceived threats. The problem is that your mind perceives growth, change, and improvement as threats to your survival. Your subconscious is wired to keep you in familiar territory, even if that territory is limiting, painful, or self-destructive. It would rather keep you safe and small than allow you to risk failure, rejection, or the unknown consequences of becoming more than you currently are. This is why change feels so difficult, even when you desperately want it. This is why you procrastinate on the very activities that would improve your life. This is why you find yourself making excuses, creating distractions, and engaging in self-sabotage just when you're starting to make progress. Your conscious mind wants to change, but your subconscious mind is fighting to keep everything the same. Understanding internal resistance is the key to overcoming it.
When you recognize resistance as a natural psychological process rather than evidence of your inadequacy, you can work with it instead of being defeated by it. When you understand the specific forms resistance takes, you can anticipate and neutralize them before they derail your progress. The first form of internal resistance is comfort zone gravity. Your comfort zone isn't just a mental concept, it's a neurological reality. Your brain has created neural pathways for your current behaviors, thoughts, and emotional patterns. These pathways are like grooves in your brain that make familiar patterns easy and automatic. When you try to change, you're fighting against the gravitational pull of these established pathways. Comfort zone gravity manifests as the constant urge to return to old patterns. You start a new workout routine, but you find yourself making excuses to skip sessions. You begin a new morning routine, but you find yourself sleeping in and returning to old habits. You start eating healthier, but you find yourself craving and returning to old foods. This isn't lack of willpower. It's neurological momentum. The key to overcoming comfort zone gravity is creating new neural pathways through consistent repetition, while simultaneously weakening old pathways through conscious avoidance. Every time you choose the new behavior over the old behavior,
You strengthen the new pathway and weaken the old one. But this process takes time, and during the transition period, you must expect and prepare for the gravitational pull toward familiar patterns. The second form of internal resistance is identity protection syndrome. Your subconscious mind has a clear picture of who you are, and it'll fight to maintain that identity even if it's limiting or self-destructive. If you see yourself as someone who struggles with discipline, your mind will resist evidence that contradicts this identity. If you see yourself as someone who isn't good with money, your mind will sabotage your financial progress. If you see yourself as someone who doesn't deserve success, your mind will find ways to undermine your achievements. Identity protection syndrome manifests as self-sabotage that occurs just as you're starting to succeed. You make progress toward your goals, but then you engage in behaviors that undo that progress. You start experiencing success, but then you find ways to sabotage it. You begin receiving recognition, but then you do something to damage your reputation. This isn't conscious self-destruction. It's unconscious identity protection. The solution is identity evolution through consistent action. Instead of trying to change your identity through thinking or affirmations alone, you change your identity through behavior. You act as the person you want to become until your subconscious accepts this new identity as real. Every time you act aligned with your desired identity, you provide evidence that contradicts your old self-concept. The third form of internal resistance is perfectionism paralysis. This is your mind's strategy to prevent you from taking action by setting impossible standards that guarantee failure or inaction. Your mind tells you that if you can't do something perfectly, you shouldn't do it at all. If you can't guarantee success, you shouldn't take the risk. If you can't control all variables, you shouldn't start. Perfectionism paralysis manifests as endless preparation without execution, constant research without implementation, and analysis paralysis that prevents decision-making. You spend months planning the perfect workout routine, but never actually work out. You research the perfect business strategy, but never actually start the business. You design the perfect life plan, but never actually take the first step. The antidote to perfectionism paralysis is embracing what I call strategic imperfection. This means taking action before you feel ready, starting before you have all answers, and improving as you go rather than waiting for perfect conditions. Strategic imperfection recognizes that progress matters more than perfection, and that done is better than perfect. The fourth form of internal resistance is fear-based forecasting. This is your mind's tendency to imagine all the ways change could go wrong, all negative consequences that could result from growth, and all reasons why staying the same is safer than taking risks. Your mind creates elaborate disaster scenarios to justify avoiding action. Fear-based forecasting manifests as catastrophic thinking about potential outcomes, obsessive focus on everything that could go wrong, and paralysis caused by imaginary future problems. You want to start a business, but your mind focuses on all ways it could fail. You want to improve your health, but your mind imagines all ways you could get injured. You want to build relationships, but your mind focuses on all ways you could be rejected. The solution to fear-based forecasting is reality-based assessment combined with worst-case scenario planning. Instead of letting your mind run wild with imaginary disasters, you conduct realistic assessment of actual risks and create concrete plans for handling challenging situations. This satisfies your mind's need for safety while allowing you to take intelligent action. The fifth form of internal resistance is energy conservation mode. Your brain is wired to conserve energy whenever possible, and change requires energy. Your subconscious mind will resist activities that require sustained mental or physical effort, especially when benefits aren't immediately obvious. Energy conservation mode manifests as sudden fatigue when you try to work on important goals, lack of motivation for activities requiring effort, and preference for passive entertainment over active development. You feel energized when avoiding important tasks, but tired when trying to work on meaningful projects. The solution is energy management through strategic rest and recovery, combined with momentum building through small wins. You work with your natural energy cycles rather than against them, and you build momentum through consistent small actions rather than sporadic large efforts. Mastering internal resistance requires understanding it's not the enemy. It's a misguided protector. Your resistance is trying to keep you safe, but its definition of safety is keeping you small. When you recognize resistance as a natural part of growth, you can work with it instead of being defeated by it. When you understand the specific forms resistance takes, you can anticipate and neutralize them before they sabotage your progress. The key is developing what I call resistance resilience, the ability to feel resistance without being stopped by it. You acknowledge the resistance, understand why it's there, and then take action anyway. You don't wait for resistance to disappear, because it never will completely. You learn to act in the presence of resistance, and eventually the new behaviors become automatic and the resistance fades. Chapter 10. The Advanced Self-Focus Strategies that Separate Winners from Everyone Else. You've learned the fundamentals of rebuilding yourself through self-focus. But now it's time to understand the advanced strategies that separate the top performers from everyone else. These aren't just additional techniques to add to your toolkit. These are sophisticated psychological and strategic approaches that create exponential rather than linear growth. These are the methods that transform self-focus from a personal development practice into a competitive advantage that makes you virtually unstoppable. The first advanced strategy is what I call systematic self-optimization. While most people approach self-improvement randomly, trying different techniques without overall strategy, advanced practitioners approach self-development like engineers approach system design. They understand that you are a complex system with multiple interconnected components, and optimizing the system requires understanding how each component affects every other component. Systematic self-optimization begins with comprehensive life auditing. This means examining every area of your life with the precision of a scientist studying a complex organism. You analyze your physical health, mental clarity, emotional stability, relationships, career, finances, environment, habits, beliefs, and goals, not as separate elements, but as interconnected parts of a whole system. The key insight is that optimization in one area creates cascading improvements in other areas, while problems in one area create cascading problems throughout the system. When you improve physical health, mental clarity improves, which improves decision-making, which improves career performance, which improves your financial situation, which reduces stress, which improves relationships. Advanced practitioners identify leverage points in their personal system, the areas where small improvements create disproportionately large results across multiple domains. They focus energy on these high-leverage improvements rather than spreading efforts across many low-impact activities. The second advanced strategy is temporal self-management. This goes far beyond traditional time management to include managing your relationship with time itself. Advanced practitioners understand that you exist across multiple time horizons simultaneously: your immediate moment, your daily rhythms, your weekly cycles, your monthly patterns, your yearly trajectories, and your lifetime arc. Temporal self-management involves aligning your actions across all time horizons so that immediate choices support daily goals support weekly objectives support monthly targets support yearly vision, and yearly vision supports lifetime mission. This requires developing what I call temporal intelligence, the ability to make decisions that optimize for multiple time horizons simultaneously. You're not just asking what you want to do right now. You're asking what the best version of yourself would do right now if they were thinking about impact on tomorrow, next week, next month, next year, and their entire life. Advanced practitioners also understand and optimize their personal time rhythms. They identify when they have peak energy for different types of activities and structure their lives to align high-priority activities with high-energy periods. They understand their natural cycles of focus and rest and work with these cycles rather than against them. The third advanced strategy is identity architecture. While most people let their identity form accidentally through experiences and external influences, advanced practitioners consciously design and build their identity like an architect designs a building.
They understand that identity isn't fixed, it's constructed, and they take conscious control of the construction process. Identity architecture involves 3 levels: core identity, which includes your fundamental values, beliefs, and sense of purpose; functional identity, which includes the roles you play and capabilities you develop; and expressive identity, which includes how you present yourself to the world and how others perceive you. Advanced practitioners design each level intentionally. They choose values based on what will create the life they want rather than just accepting inherited values. They develop capabilities that align with their goals rather than just developing whatever opportunities present themselves. They craft their personal brand and reputation strategically rather than just hoping others see them positively. The key to identity architecture is understanding that you can be multiple versions of yourself and consciously choosing which version to express in different contexts. You have a professional identity, a personal identity, a social identity, and a private identity. Advanced practitioners ensure all versions are authentic but optimized for their specific context and goals. The 4th advanced strategy is adversity utilization. While most people see challenges, setbacks, and difficulties as obstacles to overcome, advanced practitioners see them as raw materials for building strength, wisdom, and capability. They understand that adversity isn't something that happens to you, it's something you can use to forge yourself into a stronger version. Adversity utilization involves 3 processes: extraction, which means identifying the lessons, skills, and insights available in every difficult experience; integration, which means incorporating these lessons into your identity and decision-making frameworks; and transformation, which means using adversity as fuel for becoming more than you were before the challenge. Advanced practitioners don't just survive difficult experiences, they metabolize them. They extract every possible benefit from challenges and use those benefits to accelerate growth. They understand that the same adversity that breaks some people can be used to build unshakable strength in others. And the difference is how you process and utilize the experience. This doesn't mean seeking unnecessary difficulty or romanticizing suffering. It means approaching inevitable challenges with a growth mindset that asks, how can I
Use this experience to become stronger, wiser, and more capable? What skills can I develop through this challenge that I couldn't develop any other way? How can I use this adversity to build the exact capabilities I need for my goals? The 5th advanced strategy is influence multiplication. Advanced practitioners understand that true self-focus eventually extends beyond the self to include strategic influence over their environment, relationships, and circumstances. They recognize that you cannot optimize yourself in isolation because you exist within systems of relationships and environments that constantly influence your development. Influence multiplication involves consciously designing your environment to support your growth, building relationships that accelerate your development, and developing the ability to influence others in ways that create mutual benefit. This isn't about manipulation or control. It's about understanding that your environment shapes you and taking conscious control of that shaping process. Advanced practitioners curate their physical environment to support their goals, removing elements that promote negative behaviors and adding elements that promote positive behaviors. They strategically build relationships with people who inspire, challenge, and support their growth, while minimizing relationships that drain energy or reinforce limiting patterns. They also develop the ability to influence others positively, understanding that the best way to get what you want is to help others get what they want. They become valuable to others through their knowledge, skills, and insights, which creates a network of relationships that supports their continued growth and success. The sixth advanced strategy is anti-fragility development. This concept, popularized by Nassim Taleb, goes beyond resilience to describe systems that actually get stronger from stress and chaos rather than just surviving them. Advanced practitioners don't just build the ability to handle challenges, they build the ability to thrive because of challenges. Anti-fragility development involves exposing yourself to controlled stress and variability to build adaptive capacity, creating redundancy in your skills and resources so setbacks in one area don't devastate your entire system, and building optionality so you can benefit from unexpected opportunities and changes. This means deliberately putting yourself in slightly uncomfortable situations that require growth. It means developing multiple income streams, multiple skill sets, and multiple social networks so you're not dependent on any single source of security. It means positioning yourself to benefit from change and uncertainty rather than just protecting yourself from them. These advanced strategies require a level of self-awareness, strategic thinking, and long-term commitment that most people never develop. But when you master them, you don't just improve your life incrementally, you transform it exponentially. You become someone who doesn't just achieve goals, but consistently exceeds your own expectations. You become someone who doesn't just adapt to change, but thrives because of change. The difference between average self-focus and advanced self-focus is the difference between self-improvement and self-mastery. When you implement these strategies consistently, you don't just become a better version of yourself, you become a fundamentally different kind of person. You become someone who operates at a level that seems impossible from where you are now, but becomes inevitable when you apply these principles systematically over time. Chapter 11. The Momentum Multiplication System that compounds your growth exponentially. Most people experience growth in waves. They make progress for a while, then plateau. They break through to a new level, then stagnate. They achieve some goals, then lose momentum. This cycle of progress and regression keeps them trapped in a pattern of starting over, making some headway, falling back, and starting over again. But there's a way to break free from this cycle and create momentum that builds on itself, compounds over time, and accelerates your growth exponentially rather than linearly. The secret is understanding that momentum isn't just about doing more or working harder. Momentum is about creating systems and strategies that make each success easier to achieve than the last. It's about building a foundation where your wins create more wins, where your progress creates more progress, where your growth creates more growth. This is the difference between people who achieve temporary success and people who create lasting transformation. The momentum multiplication system is based on 5 core principles that work together to create compound growth. When you understand and implement these principles, You don't just improve gradually over time. You improve at an accelerating rate that creates exponential transformation. The first principle is progression stacking. This means structuring your goals and activities so each achievement builds directly on the previous achievement, creating a stack of capabilities that make the next level easier to reach. Most people set random, disconnected goals that don't reinforce each other. They want to get fit and learn a new skill, and improve relationships, and advance their career. But they treat these as separate objectives that compete for time and energy. Progression stacking involves identifying core capabilities that support multiple areas of your life, and building those capabilities in a sequence that makes each subsequent goal easier to achieve. For example, developing discipline through a morning routine creates the foundation for fitness goals. Achieving fitness goals builds confidence and energy needed for career advancement. Career advancement provides resources and credibility needed for relationship improvements. When you stack progressions this way, each win doesn't just achieve a specific goal, it creates the foundation for multiple future wins. You're not just checking items off a list, you're building a system of interconnected capabilities that make continued growth inevitable. The second principle is compound skill development. Instead of learning random skills based on immediate interests or opportunities, you strategically develop skills that multiply the value of other skills. Some skills are force multipliers that enhance everything else you do. Communication skills make you better at every relationship and every professional situation. Critical thinking skills improve decision-making in every area. Emotional regulation skills enhance performance in every challenging situation. Compound skill development means identifying meta-skills that improve your ability to develop other skills and prioritizing those meta-skills in your learning strategy. When you develop the skill of learning itself, every other skill becomes easier to acquire. When you develop the skill of habit formation, every positive behavior becomes easier to implement. When you develop the skill of mental focus, every cognitive task becomes more efficient. The key is understanding that some skills have linear benefits, while others have exponential benefits. Learning to play a specific instrument benefits you only when playing that instrument. Learning to learn quickly benefits you every time you need to acquire any new knowledge or skill. Learning to regulate emotions benefits you in every situation where you experience stress, challenge, or pressure. The third principle is success momentum capturing. Most people achieve a win and immediately move on to the next challenge without fully leveraging the momentum from their success. They lose the psychological and practical benefits that could be used to accelerate their next achievement. Success momentum capturing involves maximizing the psychological, social, and practical leverage comes from each win. Psychologically, success creates confidence, which makes you more willing to take risks and more likely to persist through challenges. But this confidence boost is temporary, unless you consciously reinforce it. Success momentum capturing means immediately using the confidence from one win to tackle the next challenge while positive emotions are still strong. Socially, success creates credibility and opportunities. People notice when you achieve something meaningful, and this attention opens doors that weren't available before. Success momentum capturing means strategically leveraging this increased credibility to create new opportunities, build valuable relationships, and gain access to resources that can accelerate your next goals. Practically, Success often creates resources, money, skills, connections, knowledge, or tools that can be used to achieve future goals more easily. Success momentum capturing means immediately identifying and deploying these resources toward your next objectives, rather than letting them sit unused or get absorbed into lifestyle inflation. The fourth principle is failure fast-forward processing. Most people see failure as momentum-stopping events that require recovery time and emotional processing before they can move forward. But advanced practitioners understand that failure is actually compressed learning that can accelerate growth if processed correctly. The key is developing the ability to extract maximum value from failures quickly and use that value to improve your next attempt immediately. Failure fast-forward processing involves 3 steps: rapid analysis, which means quickly identifying specific factors that contributed to failure without getting lost in emotional reactions; insight extraction, which means isolating the lessons, skills, and knowledge that can be gained from the experience; and immediate implementation, which means applying these insights to your next attempt as quickly as possible. When you master failure fast-forward processing, failures become momentum accelerators rather than momentum killers. Each setback provides information that makes your next attempt more likely to succeed. Each mistake builds capabilities that make future challenges easier to handle. Each failure becomes a stepping stone rather than a stumbling block. The fifth principle is environment momentum design. Your environment constantly influences your behavior, either supporting your growth or hindering it. Most people adapt themselves to their environment, but advanced practitioners design their environment to support their momentum. This includes your physical environment, your social environment, your information environment, and your daily routine environment. Environment momentum design means structuring your surroundings so positive behaviors are easy and automatic, while negative behaviors are difficult and inconvenient. This might mean organizing your home to support healthy habits, surrounding yourself with people who encourage your growth, curating your information consumption to include only content that supports your goals, and designing daily routines that build momentum rather than drain energy. The key insight is that willpower is finite, but environmental design is infinite. When your environment supports your goals, you don't have to rely on motivation or willpower to maintain momentum. The structure of your life naturally guides you toward positive behaviors and away from negative ones. When you implement all 5 principles of the momentum multiplication system, something extraordinary happens. Your growth stops being a struggle and starts being a natural flow. Each day builds on the previous day. Each week builds on the previous week. Each month builds on the previous month. You develop what I call unstoppable momentum, a state where continued growth becomes easier than stagnation. This doesn't mean your path becomes effortless or that you never face challenges. It means challenges become opportunities to build strength. Setbacks become sources of valuable information. Obstacles become stepping stones to higher levels of capability. You develop momentum that is self-sustaining and self-amplifying. The momentum multiplication system transforms the entire experience of personal development. Instead of constantly pushing yourself uphill, you create conditions where growth pulls you forward. Instead of fighting against resistance,
you build momentum that overwhelms resistance. Instead of struggling to maintain progress, you create systems where progress maintains itself. Chapter 12. Creating your personal operating system that runs your life automatically. Your life is currently running on an operating system you didn't consciously design. This system is made up of unconscious habits, inherited beliefs, emotional patterns, and reactive behaviors that determine how you respond to every situation. Most of this operating system was installed during childhood and adolescence without your conscious input or consent. It's a collection of programming from your family, culture, education, and early experiences that now runs your life automatically, whether it serves your current goals or not. But just like you can upgrade the operating system on your computer to make it faster, more efficient, and more capable, you can consciously design and install a personal operating system that automatically guides you toward your goals, supports your values, and creates the life you actually want, rather than the life your unconscious programming creates by default. Your personal operating system consists of 4 core components: your default settings, which are automatic responses and behaviors that run without conscious thought; your decision-making protocols, which are frameworks you use to evaluate options and make choices; your stress response programs, which determine how you handle challenges, pressure, and unexpected situations;
and your growth and adaptation routines, which automatically update and improve your system over time. The first component, default settings, includes all unconscious behaviors that make up the majority of your daily experience. These are habits, routines, and automatic responses that require no conscious decision-making. Most people's default settings were programmed randomly through repetition and circumstance, rather than being consciously designed to support their goals. Designing your default settings means identifying key behaviors and responses that have the biggest impact on your life and consciously programming them to support your objectives. This includes your morning routine, which sets tone for your entire day; your work habits, which determine professional effectiveness; your evening routine, which affects recovery and preparation for the next day; your health behaviors, which impact energy and longevity; and your relationship patterns, which determine quality of connections with others. The key to effective default settings is making your ideal behaviors automatic, so they don't require willpower or motivation. When positive behaviors become default settings, you perform them consistently regardless of how you feel or what else is happening. You remove the decision-making burden from activities that should happen regularly and save mental energy for higher-level strategic thinking. The second component, decision-making protocols, are systematic approaches you use to evaluate options and make choices. Most people make decisions reactively, based on emotions, immediate desires, or external pressure. But advanced practitioners develop systematic protocols that ensure their decisions consistently align with long-term goals and values. Effective decision-making protocols include criteria for evaluating opportunities based on alignment with your goals, potential for growth, and long-term consequences, rather than just immediate appeal. They include frameworks for prioritizing when you have multiple good options. They include methods for gathering necessary information without falling into analysis paralysis. They include processes for making difficult decisions when there's no clearly right answer. The goal is eliminating decision fatigue and ensuring consistency in your choices. When you have clear protocols for making decisions, you don't have to reinvent your decision-making process every time you face a choice. You simply apply your predetermined framework and move forward with confidence. The third component, stress response programs, determines how you automatically respond to challenges, pressure, setbacks, and unexpected situations. Most people's stress response programs were developed during childhood and are designed for survival rather than success. They might include fight, flight, or freeze responses that worked in dangerous situations, but are counterproductive in modern challenges. Designing your stress response programs means consciously choosing how you want to respond to different types of stress and pressure. This includes developing automatic responses that help you stay calm and focused under pressure, systematic approaches for dealing with setbacks that extract lessons and maintain momentum, protocols for handling criticism and conflict that protect emotional stability while remaining open to feedback, and routines for managing overwhelming situations that break problems down into manageable components. When you have well-designed stress response programs, stress becomes a performance enhancer rather than inhibitor. Challenges become opportunities to demonstrate capabilities rather than threats to well-being. Pressure becomes fuel for achievement rather than source of anxiety. The fourth component, growth and adaptation routines, ensures your personal operating system continuously improves over time rather than becoming stagnant. These are systematic processes that allow you to learn from experience, update approaches based on new information, and evolve your system as goals and circumstances change. Growth and adaptation routines include regular review processes that assess what's working and what needs improvement, learning systems that ensure you're continuously acquiring new knowledge and skills, feedback mechanisms that help you identify blind spots and areas for development, and update protocols that modify your other systems based on new insights and changing circumstances. The key is building improvement into your system so growth happens automatically rather than only when you're motivated to change. Your personal operating system should be self-improving, constantly becoming more effective and better aligned with your evolving goals. Installing your personal operating system requires 3 phases: assessment, where you examine your current unconscious programming and identify what needs to change; design, where you consciously create new defaults, protocols, and routines that support your goals; and implementation, where you gradually replace old programming with new programming through consistent practice. The assessment phase involves conducting thorough audit of your current automatic behaviors, decision-making patterns, stress responses, and growth habits. You identify which aspects of your current operating system serve you and which aspects limit you. This requires honest self-observation and possibly feedback from others who can help you see your blind spots. The design phase involves consciously creating new programming that aligns with your goals and values. This isn't about copying someone else's system. It's about designing approaches that work for your unique personality, circumstances, and objectives. You create specific protocols for common situations and general frameworks for handling unusual circumstances. The implementation phase involves gradually installing your new programming through consistent practice until it becomes automatic. This requires patience because you're literally rewiring neural pathways and creating new habits. The old programming will resist change, so you need systematic approaches for reinforcing new patterns until they become stronger than old patterns. When your personal operating system is fully installed and running, your life operates with a level of efficiency and effectiveness that seems effortless to others. You automatically make choices that support your goals. You instinctively respond to challenges in ways that create growth rather than setbacks. You naturally engage in behaviors that build the life you want rather than the life you inherited. This doesn't mean your life becomes predictable or mechanical. It means the foundation of your life is solid and automatically supports your conscious goals and values. You have more mental and emotional energy available for creativity, innovation, and high-level strategic thinking, because the basics of your life are handled automatically by systems you've consciously designed. Your personal operating system becomes your competitive advantage. While others are constantly fighting against their unconscious programming, making reactive decisions and struggling with inconsistent behaviors, you're operating from a foundation of conscious design that automatically guides you toward success. Chapter 13. The Elite Mental Models that Rewire Your Thinking for Unstoppable Success. The difference between ordinary thinking and extraordinary thinking isn't intelligence or education. It's the quality of the mental models you use to understand and navigate reality. Mental models are thinking frameworks that determine how you interpret information, make decisions, solve problems, and predict outcomes. Most people operate with mental models they absorbed unconsciously from their environment, without ever examining whether these models actually serve their goals. But elite performers in every field consciously develop and refine mental models that give them massive advantages in thinking quality and decision-making effectiveness. They see patterns others miss, anticipate consequences others ignore, and identify opportunities others overlook because they've equipped their minds with superior thinking frameworks. The first elite mental model is systems thinking versus linear thinking. Most people think linearly, assuming causes and effects are directly connected and problems have simple, straightforward solutions. But reality operates as complex systems where causes and effects are separated by time and space, where small changes can have large consequences, and where the obvious solution often creates unintended consequences that make the original problem worse. Systems thinking recognizes that everything is connected through networks of relationships and feedback loops. When you think systemically, you look for leverage points where small changes create large improvements. You anticipate second and third order consequences of your actions. You understand that sustainable change requires addressing root causes rather than just symptoms. In personal development, systems thinking means understanding that different areas of your life affect each other. Improving physical health improves mental clarity, which improves decision-making, which improves career performance, which improves your financial situation, which reduces stress, which improves relationships. When you think systemically, you focus on changes that create positive cascades throughout your entire life system. The second elite mental model is probabilistic thinking versus binary thinking. Most people think in absolutes. Things are either good or bad, right or wrong, possible or impossible. But reality operates in probabilities and degrees. Elite thinkers understand that most outcomes exist on a spectrum, and the goal isn't to predict exactly what will happen, but to position yourself to benefit from the most likely scenarios while protecting yourself from the most dangerous ones. Probabilistic thinking involves thinking in terms of likelihood rather than certainty, base rates rather than specific instances, and ranges rather than point estimates. When making decisions, you consider multiple possible outcomes and their relative probabilities, rather than just hoping for the best case or planning for the worst case. In personal development, probabilistic thinking means understanding that success isn't guaranteed, but can be made highly probable through the right actions, mindsets, and strategies. You focus on increasing the probability of positive outcomes while decreasing the probability of negative outcomes, rather than trying to guarantee specific results. The third elite mental model is inversion thinking. While most people focus on what they want to achieve, elite thinkers also spend significant time thinking about what they want to avoid. Inversion means approaching problems backward, starting with the worst possible outcomes and working backward to identify what could cause those outcomes, then designing strategies to prevent them. Inversion thinking is incredibly powerful because it helps you identify and eliminate the behaviors, decisions, and situations that most commonly lead to failure. It's often easier to identify what not to do than to identify exactly what to do. By eliminating the most common causes of failure, you dramatically increase your probability of success, even without having a perfect plan. In personal development, inversion thinking means asking questions like, what would guarantee I fail to achieve my goals? What behaviors would definitely keep me stuck where I am? What decisions would certainly make my life worse? Then you systematically eliminate these failure patterns from your life. The fourth elite mental model is second-order thinking. Most people consider only immediate consequences of their actions, but elite thinkers consider the consequences of the consequences. They think not just about what will happen if they take a specific action, but what will happen after that, and what will happen after that. Second-order thinking helps you avoid actions that feel good in the short term, but create problems in the long term. It also helps you choose actions that might be difficult in the short term, but create significant benefits over time. The ability to think beyond immediate consequences is one of the most important factors that separates successful people from unsuccessful people. In personal development, second-order thinking means considering not just whether a habit or behavior will give you immediate benefits, but whether it will serve you over time. It means thinking about the long-term consequences of your choices on your character, relationships, health, and future opportunities. The fifth elite mental model is anti-fragility versus fragility. Most people try to build lives that won't be harmed by negative events. But elite thinkers build lives that actually get stronger from stress, challenges, and unexpected events. They understand that trying to eliminate all risk and uncertainty often makes you more vulnerable to catastrophic failure when something unexpected happens. Anti-fragility means building redundancy into your systems So failure in one area doesn't destroy everything. It means developing capabilities that are enhanced by challenge rather than weakened by it. It means positioning yourself to benefit from volatility and uncertainty rather than just surviving them. In personal development, anti-fragility means building multiple sources of income, multiple skill sets, multiple social networks, and multiple ways of finding meaning and fulfillment. It means developing mental and emotional resilience that actually grows stronger under pressure. It means treating challenges as opportunities to build capabilities rather than just obstacles to overcome. The sixth elite mental model is compound interest thinking. Most people understand compound interest in financial terms, but elite thinkers apply this principle to every area of life. They understand that small, consistent improvements compound over time to create exponential results. They focus on building capabilities and systems that become more valuable over time rather than just achieving immediate outcomes. Compound interest thinking involves prioritizing investments in learning, relationships, health, and character that may not pay off immediately, but create exponential benefits over time. It means choosing delayed gratification when long-term benefits significantly outweigh short-term costs. In personal development, compound interest thinking means focusing on small daily improvements that compound over time rather than looking for dramatic transformations. It means building habits, skills, and relationships that become more valuable the longer you maintain them. The seventh elite mental model is optionality thinking. Instead of trying to predict the future and betting everything on one scenario, elite thinkers create multiple options and position themselves to benefit from various possible outcomes. They understand that the future is uncertain, and the best strategy is often to maximize your options rather than make perfect predictions. Optionality thinking involves building capabilities, relationships, and resources that create multiple possible paths forward. It means avoiding decisions that lock you into one specific future, while creating decisions that open up multiple possibilities. In personal development, optionality thinking means developing multiple skills that could be valuable in various scenarios, building relationships with people in different industries and fields, and maintaining financial and lifestyle flexibility that allows you to adapt to changing circumstances. When you consistently apply these elite mental models, your thinking quality improves dramatically. You see opportunities others miss. You avoid problems others stumble into. You make decisions that compound positively over time, while others make decisions that limit their future options. These mental models become automatic thinking tools that upgrade every decision you make and every problem you solve. They transform you from someone who reacts to circumstances into someone who anticipates Possibilities and positions themselves strategically for long-term success. Chapter 14. Building unbreakable discipline that becomes your natural way of being. Discipline isn't about forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. That's willpower. And willpower is finite, exhausting, and unreliable. True discipline is about restructuring your life so behaviors that serve your goals become your natural automatic responses to daily situations. It's about building systems and mindsets that make positive behaviors easier than negative behaviors, making discipline feel effortless rather than forced. Most people think of discipline as suffering, as denying themselves pleasure, as constantly fighting against their natural desires. But this understanding of discipline is exactly why most people fail to develop it consistently. When you see discipline as punishment, your mind will resist it.
When you see discipline as suffering, you'll avoid it. When you see discipline as unnatural, you'll constantly fight against it. Unbreakable discipline is built on a completely different foundation. It's based on understanding that discipline is actually freedom, that structure creates spontaneity, and that constraints enable creativity. When you have strong discipline in fundamental areas of your life, you have more freedom to be creative, spontaneous, and flexible in other areas. When your basics are handled automatically, you have more mental and emotional energy available for higher-level pursuits. The first pillar of unbreakable discipline is identity-based habits rather than outcome-based habits. Most people try to build discipline by focusing on what they want to achieve. They want to lose weight, so they force themselves to exercise. They want success, so they force themselves to work harder. They want organization, so they force themselves to clean up. But identity-based habits work differently. Instead of asking, "What do I want to achieve?" you ask, "Who do I want to become?" Then you build habits consistent with that identity. You don't exercise because you want to lose weight. You exercise because you're the type of person who prioritizes health. You don't work hard because you want success. You work strategically because you're the type of person who creates value. You don't clean up because you want organization. You maintain order because you're the type of person who respects their environment. When your habits align with your identity, they feel natural rather than forced. You're not fighting against yourself. You're expressing yourself. You're not denying your nature, you're becoming your nature. This eliminates the internal resistance that makes discipline feel difficult. The second pillar is environmental design that supports disciplined behavior automatically. Your environment constantly influences your behavior, either making discipline easier or harder. Most people try to build discipline while living in environments that encourage
undisciplined behavior, then wonder why they struggle with consistency. Environmental design means structuring your physical, social, and information environments to make positive behaviors automatic and negative behaviors difficult. This includes removing temptations and obstacles that make discipline harder, adding cues and triggers that prompt disciplined behavior, surrounding yourself with people who model and encourage disciplined behavior, and creating systems that make tracking and maintaining discipline effortless. When your environment supports your discipline, you don't have to rely on willpower to make good choices. The structure of your life naturally guides you toward positive behaviors. Your discipline becomes a product of smart design rather than constant effort. The third pillar is micro-discipline that builds macro-discipline. Most people try to build discipline by taking on huge challenges that require enormous willpower and perfect execution. When they inevitably fail, they conclude they lack discipline. But discipline is built through small, consistent actions that prove to yourself you can keep commitments. Micro-discipline means starting with commitments so small that failure is almost impossible, then gradually increasing difficulty as your discipline muscle strengthens. You might start by committing to drink 1 glass of water every morning, then build to a full morning routine. You might start by committing to write 1 sentence daily, then build to a full writing practice. The key insight is that discipline is transferable. When you prove to yourself you can keep small commitments consistently, You build confidence in your ability to keep larger commitments. Each successful micro-discipline experience strengthens your identity as someone who follows through. The fourth pillar is systems-based discipline rather than motivation-based discipline. Motivation is emotional and temporary. Systems are structural and permanent. When you rely on motivation to drive discipline, you're dependent on feeling like doing the right thing. When you rely on systems, you do the right thing regardless of how you feel. Systems-based discipline means creating structures, routines, and processes that make disciplined behavior automatic. This includes daily routines that eliminate decision fatigue, tracking systems that provide feedback and accountability, and recovery protocols that maintain your discipline during difficult periods. The goal is making discipline a function of your system rather than your feelings. When your system is strong enough, you can maintain disciplined behavior even when you're tired, stressed, or unmotivated. The fifth pillar is discipline stacking that creates compound discipline. Instead of treating different areas of discipline as separate challenges, you stack them so success in one area makes success in other areas easier. You build discipline in one domain, then use that momentum to build discipline in related domains. For example, you might start by building discipline in your morning routine, which creates momentum for building discipline in your work habits, which creates momentum for building discipline in your health behaviors, which creates momentum for building discipline in your evening routine. Each area of discipline reinforces and strengthens the others. Discipline stacking leverages the fact that discipline is a transferable skill. When you strengthen discipline in any area, you strengthen your overall capacity for self-control and follow-through. When you prove to yourself you can be disciplined in one domain, you build confidence in your ability to be disciplined in other domains. The sixth pillar is sustainable intensity rather than burnout intensity. Many people try to build discipline through extreme measures that can't be maintained over time. They go from zero discipline to maximum discipline overnight, burn out within weeks, and then conclude they're incapable of sustained discipline. Sustainable intensity means finding the level of discipline you can maintain consistently over long periods rather than the maximum level you can sustain for short periods. It's better to maintain moderate discipline for years than extreme discipline for weeks. This requires honest assessment of your current capacity and gradual expansion of that capacity over time. You build discipline like you build physical fitness, through progressive overload that challenges you without overwhelming you. The seventh pillar is discipline recovery protocols that help you bounce back quickly from lapses. Everyone breaks their discipline occasionally. The difference between people who develop unbreakable discipline and people who give up is how quickly they recover from lapses. Discipline recovery protocols include predetermined responses to common failure scenarios, quick restart procedures that get you back on track immediately, and learning systems that extract lessons from lapses to prevent similar failures in the future. The key is treating lapses as temporary setbacks rather than permanent failures. When you have strong recovery protocols, a single mistake doesn't destroy your momentum or your identity as a disciplined person. When you build discipline on these 7 pillars, it stops feeling like discipline and starts feeling like your natural way of being.
You become someone who naturally makes choices that serve long-term goals. You become someone who automatically follows through on commitments. You become someone who instinctively chooses the harder right over the easier wrong. This level of discipline becomes your competitive advantage in every area. While others are constantly fighting internal resistance and struggling with consistency, you're operating from a foundation of reliable self-control that makes sustained high performance possible. Unbreakable discipline isn't about becoming a robot or eliminating all spontaneity. It's about building such a strong
Foundation of positive behaviors that you have maximum freedom to be creative, flexible, and spontaneous within that structure. When your basics are handled automatically through discipline, everything else becomes possible. Chapter 15. The complete life architecture that ensures your rebuilt self lasts forever. You've learned how to rebuild yourself, but now comes the most critical challenge: making sure your transformation lasts. The graveyard of personal development is filled with people who experienced dramatic breakthroughs, made significant changes, and built new habits only to slowly drift back to old patterns over time. They rebuilt themselves temporarily, but didn't create the architecture necessary to maintain their transformation permanently. Complete life architecture is about designing and building a life structure that makes your rebuilt self sustainable for decades, not just months. It's about creating systems, relationships, environments, and mindsets that continuously reinforce your growth rather than allowing gradual decay back to your previous state. It's about becoming someone who gets stronger over time rather than someone who peaks early and then declines. The first component of complete life architecture is structural integrity, which means building your life on foundations that won't crack under pressure. Most people build transformation on motivation, willpower, and temporary enthusiasm. But these foundations are inherently unstable. When life gets difficult, when stress increases, when motivation fades, these weak foundations crumble, and people revert to old patterns. Structural integrity means building transformation on systems, habits, environment design, and identity, rather than feelings and motivation. It means creating structures that work regardless of how you feel, what's happening around you, or what challenges you're facing. It means building redundancy, so if one support fails, others maintain your progress. This includes financial structures that support your goals rather than creating stress that derails progress, career structures that align with your values rather than forcing you to compromise integrity, relationship structures that encourage growth rather than pulling you back to old patterns, and health structures that maintain your physical and mental foundation regardless of external pressures. The second component is continuous evolution programming. Most people think of personal development as reaching a destination, achieving certain goals, and then maintaining that level. But this maintenance mindset is actually what causes regression. When you stop growing, you start dying. When you stop evolving, you start stagnating. When you stop challenging yourself, you stop declining. Continuous evolution programming means building growth into your life structure so evolution becomes automatic rather than optional. This includes learning systems that ensure you're constantly acquiring new knowledge, Skills. Challenge systems that regularly push you outside your comfort zone. Feedback systems that help you identify areas for improvement. And adaptation systems that help you adjust to changing circumstances. The key insight is that the goal isn't reaching a final state of perfection, It's becoming someone who continuously evolves toward greater capabilities, wisdom, and effectiveness. Your rebuilt self should be just the beginning of a lifelong journey of becoming more than you currently are. The third component is legacy building that gives your transformation meaning beyond yourself. When your growth serves only yourself, it's easy to lose motivation when you achieve personal goals. But when your transformation serves something larger than yourself, it becomes self-sustaining because it's connected to purpose that transcends personal satisfaction. Legacy building means identifying how your rebuilt self can contribute to others, create positive impact, and leave the world better than you found it. This might involve mentoring others going through similar transformation, building businesses or organizations that serve important causes, creating art or content that inspires others, or simply modeling what's possible for people in your sphere of influence. When your personal transformation becomes part of a larger mission, maintaining your growth becomes not just personally important, but morally important. You're not just building yourself for yourself, you're building yourself to serve others and contribute to something meaningful. The fourth component is relationship architecture that surrounds you with people who support and accelerate your continued growth. Your relationships are either assets that help you maintain and expand your transformation, or liabilities that slowly pull you back toward old patterns. Most people underestimate how much their social environment affects long-term development. Relationship architecture involves consciously designing your social environment to include people who inspire you, challenge you, support you, and hold you accountable to your highest standards. This includes mentors who've achieved what you want to achieve, peers who are on similar growth journeys, and people you mentor who remind you of how far you've come. It also involves limiting or eliminating relationships that consistently encourage regression, drama, or mediocrity. This doesn't mean abandoning people who are struggling, but it does mean being strategic about how much time and energy you invest in relationships that drain rather than fuel your growth. The fifth and final component is adaptive resilience that allows you to maintain your transformation through inevitable life changes and challenges. Life will throw unexpected events at you: career changes, health issues, relationship challenges, financial setbacks. The question isn't whether you'll face difficulties, but whether your life architecture can withstand them without collapsing. Adaptive resilience means building flexibility into your systems so they can adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining core principles. It means developing multiple paths to your goals, so if one path becomes blocked, others remain open. It means creating buffers and reserves that allow you to handle unexpected challenges without abandoning your transformation. When you build complete life architecture, incorporating all 5 components, your rebuilt self becomes permanent rather than temporary. Your transformation becomes self-sustaining rather than requiring constant effort to maintain. You become someone who naturally continues growing and evolving, rather than someone who peaks and then declines. This is the difference between people who experience temporary change and people who create lasting transformation. This is what separates those who rebuild themselves for a season from those who rebuild themselves for a lifetime. Your journey of rebuilding yourself doesn't end here. It begins here. Every day from this moment forward is an opportunity to strengthen your foundation, expand your capabilities, and become more of who you're meant to be. Every challenge is a chance to prove your transformation is real. Every success is evidence that your new way of being works. Remember this: you are not rebuilding yourself to become someone else. You are rebuilding yourself to become who you always were, beneath all the conditioning, beneath all the external expectations, beneath all the self-abandonment. You are reclaiming yourself. You are remembering yourself. You are becoming yourself. And when you make your focus on yourself not just a daily practice, but a complete life philosophy, everything changes. You stop living borrowed lives and start living your own. You stop seeking external validation and start generating internal strength. You stop being a character in everyone else's story and start being the author of your own. This is your time. This is your life. This is your moment to rebuild yourself and create something extraordinary. Let your focus be on you every single day.